Hello, welcome to another edition of Rex the Adequate Would-Be Chef. Today, we've sprung a leak. No, not that kind of leak. This kind of leak. Part of this recipe calls for peeling these potatoes and then dicing them up. Before you really start cutting anything, you should always try to keep your knife sharpened. Now you'll see a lot of chefs, you know, I can't do it at all as fast as they do, and it looks really cool to do this. Now this actually isn't sharpening the blade. This steel here actually moves the metal of the blade, so you'll still have to sharpen them in the future, but this will help. And you always want to have good sharp knives. But let me show you a better way to do this. By putting it in the air like this, it's too willy-nilly. Really what you want to do is you want to maintain a single angle there. And if you don't maintain that angle, you're really hurting yourself more than helping yourself. So if you take your steel, put it right down on the counter, and then you can run it this way a little bit with a little more confidence instead of just doing it in the air. And you're going to get a nice sharp blade and be able to peel nice and easy. See that? So there you go, a little knife tip. Okay, so the recipe calls for 1 pound of peeled potatoes. I got pretty much 1.5 pounds and about 1.5 pounds of leeks. So I'm going to try to sort of make this recipe a little larger than normal since I have the crock pot. Now, the potatoes, I've peeled them, and at this point you can either slice them or dice them. I'm going to do, I think, a little bit of dicing. So let's see what I got and go from there. All right, there's a 1.5 pounds of chopped dice potatoes. Basically, anytime you're doing a vegetable, you want to make sure that all your chunks are pretty uniform. That way everything will cook the same consistency. Okay, for the greens, you want to thinly slice these, so I'm assuming I can just probably go in rounds on this. And but basically, she says she wants to maintain the green, fleshy part, and just a nice thin slice. So I'm going to try to cut these as thin as possible. Okay, so here's where we're at now. I've cut up, I've increased the recipe a bit. So we have leeks, I have them finely sliced. I got 1.5 pounds of those, and I have 1.5 pounds of some cubed potatoes. It calls for 2 quarts of water. We're adding an additional quart because I'm making a larger recipe. So I've got 6 quarts of I have 3 quarts of water, so basically 12 cups. And we're going to put in 1.5 tablespoons of salt. We're going to put all of this into the pressure cooker, and we're going to start cooking. Let's see what happens. I'm a little excited. Okay, first thing, I'm going to go ahead and just I'm going to drop in the leeks right into the pressure cooker, like so, and grab the potatoes and do the same thing. There's really not much to this. I mean, you were talking leeks and potatoes and salt and cream, and she says this is really the basis of all soup. So it calls for 1.5 tablespoons of salt, and I think that's 1 tablespoon. But before I just totally go al gung ho, I know that this here is 1 tablespoon. So we'll do 1 tablespoon, and I'm going to do a little more than 1/2 for the simple reason it's kosher salt, and I like to use a little more than normal. Now, we're going to cook this for approximately 5 minutes at 15 pounds of pressure. Now there's an arrow that you can see right here on the bend, and there should be an arrow right on the pot. And so you line those up, and that's it. Your pot's on, and we technically should be ready to go. So then you take your little bobber here and you set that right on top of your pressure cooker and you turn the stove on high. Now, once we reach the proper temperature, the knob here will just sort of start to rock back and forth. We don't want a heavy rock, so at that point, once we get that's the pressure we want, we'll turn the temperature down. We just want a nice little rock on it, they say, which we'll see here in a bit. Then we're going to cook. Once you see it begin to rock, that's when you start timing. And she says for 15 pounds of pressure, which is what this pot is, we're going to cook it for just 5 minutes. It's just starting to boil. The system has just locked itself into place, but you can see right here this little dot popped straight up and locked into place, which means it just now started to create a seal. At this point, what we're waiting on is for the rocker here to start rocking. Once we have that rocking motion, then we start our timer and our 5 minutes begins. Okay, it's getting interesting here because this thing's a hissing and a popping, but the top hasn't started moving yet. So I know the steam's building up because as you can see, I can start hearing it coming right out of the top there. Bingo! There it goes, it's starting to rock. We're gonna set our timer here, kitchen timer, 5:00, start. We want a gentle rocking. We don't want too much, so just enough. So as you can see, we've got a nice little rock. We got about proper pressure. You don't want to overcook it. At this point, it's critical. You can cook a 3-pound chicken like this in 10 minutes. Bam. So we're going. Cooking with gas now. Okay. I've been reading the manual here. Little sucker's just spinning around pretty quickly. I want a nice gentle rock, and we're almost down at the low setting on the stove. Now once this thing comes off in approximately 3 minutes, we still want to simmer it for another 15 just on the stove. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to relieve the pressure rapidly. Now as you can see, this is the locking mechanism. So once that drops, we'll be able to actually open the pot up to get out the contents. This little button here is your blowout preventer. It's just basically, back in the day, these things would explode on you. That thing's meant to, if there's too much pressure, like a cork, and we're safe and sound. Alright, so here goes the alarm. Basically, I'm going to cut the heat, and we're just going to pull the top off and try to get the pressure off of this thing. There's a lot of pressure in this sucker. Alright, so there you go. You can just sort of leave it off to the side. And it's going to once all the pressure's out, that little safety valve is going to pop down. It's going to give me access to it. And then what I can do, we'll pop off the lid. I'm going to bring it back up on the stove and we're going to simmer it, not under pressure, for another 15 minutes. Okay, so yeah, this thing had probably a good 60 plus seconds, maybe even 2 minutes worth of steam coming out of it. But just a second ago, the safety valve clicked. And as you can see here, I can lift this up, and as you see here, the valve's not in there. So I should at this point safely be able to lift off my lid. And there's my soup. So I'm going to turn it right back on, and you can see here it's already simmering. Woo! Let's go right up to a boil, and we're going to continue simmering this for another 15 minutes. All right, so my stove top right now is still simmering. We got about another 8 minutes to go. What I've done here is I've set up a nice bowl with our food food meal on top of it, so that when I'm ready, we're going to pour this mixture into here and we're going to run it through this mill. Pretty much at that point, you're ready to eat this soup. And I must say, with my trusty spoon here, I've already tasted it just a bit, and it's quite delicious. Now, once it's off heat, she says you want to put in, stir in off heat about 4 to 6 tablespoons of a whipping cream and or 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter. Since I did half this recipe up, I went ahead and put in, we're going to put in 5 tablespoons of the whipping cream, and what the heck, let's throw in a little butter too. And then once we have that, I'm going to take a little bit of parsley that I've chopped up here, sprinkle it on the top, and we're going to eat it. I also picked up a, I don't know if you've noticed in the stores nowadays, they have the half-cooked French bread. So I've got one of those in the oven, so I can get some nice hot fresh bread and do a little dipping. And I'm going to have some soup, and I'm ready. I must say I've had a great time on this episode. Okay, soup's almost done. So basically we've had 5 minutes in the pressure cooker and 15 minutes on a simmer. And at this point, all we want to do is bring it over to here, run it right through our food mill. Okay, so I guess in a perfect world, oh look at that, straight down, not even hesitating. Right, lift this up, get all the chunkers out. Get some more in there. I'm going to go ahead, as you can see, it's getting a little full. So I'm thinking I should probably pour some of this out. Yep. And then finish mashing. Well, as you can see, it's not going through, so I'm a bit perplexed as to my problem. I mean, perhaps if I sit here all day, but this could take some time. I'm going to try to go to plan B. I just so happened to buy 2 sieves today. So let's see what happens when I put it through this one. So now you're catching this all now, right? You're seeing all this. This is what you guys like. Freaking mess. Okay, so luckily I bought that extra piece of equipment because I think this is a piece of crap. It's very likely going back to the store sometime next week. This little contraption, however, didn't work so bad. So pretty much, I mean, it's almost all gone. You can see it on the outside. And what you do is you just take the spatula, run it right along the side. I don't want to get this all over the place, so I'm just going to drop down. And yeah, you just basically scrape this back right into the soup. And it's a pain in the butt, let me tell you. Whatever time you saved using the pressure cooker, probably the cleanup on this and the mashing of it, woo, a lot of work. And you don't want to let that dry overnight, trust me. So, Oh, I forgot I have all this. So, here we go. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and put this back on the stove. I'm gonna correct the seasoning on it, bring it back up to a quick simmer, and then we'll finish the soup and we're gonna eat it. Okay, soup's back up on the stove. I got it going to a nice simmer now. At this point, I've turned it, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off heat. You can see the simmer there, it's just barely toughing up in a boil. So I'm gonna go ahead and just turn off the heat. So here's my softened butter. Go ahead and put that in. And then we're just gonna pour in the cream. And as you can see there, it's just turning into a nice, beautiful looking soup. Once this butter melts, what I'm going to do is put it in a bowl. We're going to see what this sucker tastes like. Okay, it's actually 8 o'clock. I think I started this somewhere around 6. The sieving took a little bit longer. There were some other things off camera, nothing that had to do with this. But nevertheless, we are done. Like I said, putting it through that sieve took more time than I expected, but the consistency of the soup is really, really nice. See what we got. Oh, it's very light, but the freshness that's coming across, it's clean. It's very good. It almost reminds me of a really clean cream of asparagus soup, and I really can't wait now to make a cream of asparagus like this because it is one of my favorite soups. But it's one of those good clean dipping soups. We don't mind dipping that fresh baguette in. Oh, that's good. So, being the first time using the pressure cooker, figuring out the whole running it through the food mill, I'll have to work on that. However, still a pretty good meal. Nice, it's quick. It's gonna help my good old chest and the head cold, and I should feel a lot better. This is the first recipe. You can build upon this. All we got to do is add watercress to it, and all of a sudden you have the watercress soup, which is exactly the next recipe. Maybe I'll actually try to do that, perhaps to see if I can't get a better food meal process going, just so we can learn upon our mistakes. I'm also going into eggs, and I'm going to have to poach an egg, not with the cute little egg poachers either. We're talking drop it in, spoon it over. And then we're going to put a really nice cheese sauce on top of it and toast up like some baguettes, saute them in butter, put the egg on top with some cheese sauce. I won't lie, my mouth's watering right now. Thank you guys for watching. Again, I'm Rex, the Adequate Chef. Bon appetit.